Recording right now. And what you're looking at right here is just a budget, just a generic budget sheet that I've got set up here in Excel. This is just something you might see. So we've got a couple descriptions and categories and some numbers here. I'm just going to go real basic with this class. This is Excel for beginners, and this is kind of the very beginnings of it. I will, at the end, show you kind of some additional resources that you can use if you need something a little bit more advanced. So if I don't cover something or don't know something that you need the answer to, I can kind of show you where to get that answer to, hopefully. So, all right, first things first, what we've got here in Excel are these little squares here. These are called cells. And in Excel, pretty much everything is put in these cells here. You can move around a couple different ways with your arrow key. You can click the mouse wherever you need to go. You can click and drag, that selects a bunch of different cells. Each cell has what they call a cell address. So the column and the row number that it's in, it gives me the cell address. This cell, for instance, is M15. That's important to know when you're doing formulas and things of that nature, which we'll go into a little bit later. But if you look here in the upper left-hand corner, this is called the name box. And in this name box, you can see I've got M15 listed. This is where I would type my cell addresses in if I want to jump to a specific cell. So let's say I have 500 cells in this worksheet, and I'm going to do A500. I'm going to press enter, and that's going to jump me all the way down to the 500th cell. So if you have a really big spreadsheet, that's helpful. If I want to jump all the way back up, I would just put in A1, click enter. So that's really helpful if you've got a big spreadsheet and you need to kind of navigate around a little bit. So that's basically cell addresses. Like I said, there's a little bit more you can do with that as far as formulas and things like that we'll get into a little bit later. All right, so that's the name box. And like I said, with cells, you can either do a left mouse click and drag. You can drag horizontally or vertically. This is good if you want to select cells that are right next to each other. And when you click and drag like this, you can see the columns and the rows. They highlight so I can see the cell addresses that I've got selected. If you want to work with cells that aren't necessarily right next to each other, you can just do a left mouse click and you just hold down your control key. So the control key is in the lower left-hand corner of your keyboard. And you just do a left mouse click. And that allows you to select cells all over the worksheet. And when you've got that done, you just do a regular left mouse click. And that gets rid of that for you. And again, when you're doing this, again, the columns and the rows, they're highlighted. So you can always see the cell address of what you've got selected. So, pause that real quick. Does anybody, let me try it this way. Does anybody have any questions on anything that I've done so far? I know this is going to move kind of fast, but. Okay, so how do I get to this page? This is just an Excel sheet that I already had done. So this is just an Excel right here. Oh, it looks like it stopped my screen sharing there. So it's just an Excel workbook I already had made up that I have opened up. So if you have any kind of Excel document, this is what you would have in there. When you go back and if you go back and do this course through YouTube, you could just pause it maybe and just fill in the categories there. All right. So we did selecting cells, we've done name boxes. So Excel has a couple things here with columns and rows. How did I get to Excel? You just pull up to Excel on your shortcut here. So in my start menu, I've got Excel. And then there's just a spreadsheet. So here's Excel. And then here's a new spreadsheet. So it's just one I already had made up. That's why you can't actually see it on. But if you just go to that Excel point, you should see that there. Somewhere on your start menu or on your desktop. All right. So we've got that. Columns and rows. We've got columns. They're in the alphabets here, the A through whatever letter, and numbers. We've got 1 through whatever number we're going to go to. Now, to select a column or a row, you just click on the column or the row, and that lets you highlight. And let's see. With that, if I want to add another column or add another row, so let's say that I want to actually put a row in between this living total and total here. What I would do is, for adding a row, you want to go 1 row below where you want your new row to be. So in order to put something in between living total and total, I would actually need to come down to row 14 here. And if you see where the my cursor changes over to an arrow, when I click on that, that selects the entire row. And what I would do here is I would just right-click on that. And you can see I've got an insert function right here. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the insert. And here's my insert. And it put a new row in between living total and total. So again, to do a row, you go 1 spot below where you want the actual row to be. So I want a row in between 13 and 14. So I'm going to come down to row 14, select the row. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click on this insert button. And that's going to put the row in there for me. And you can do that anywhere on this spreadsheet if you want an extra row. Columns are the same. If I want a column in between F and G, I would go to the right of where I want my new column to be. So if I wanted something in between F and G, I go to G because that's to the right of that. I click Insert, and there's my new column that's separating these now. Okay, so again, to add a column, you go to the right of where you want it to be. Here's G, that's to the right of where I want this to be. Right click and insert. Okay, so that's how I would add a column or a row. Now to delete a column or a row, it's pretty easy. You just highlight the row or column you want to get rid of. So I've got 2 Mays here. I'm going to get rid of one of these. I'm going to right click and I'm going to delete. And that gets rid of my column for me right there. So if you want to add, you want to go 1 row below or to the right of, but if you want to delete, you just go right to that row or column and you just select it and delete. Now, if you want to resize these, you can do that as well. So you can see I've got personal budget. It's taking up 2 spots here. It's going from column A into column B, which I don't want. In order to kind of trim that up and make that look neater and put everything into 1 column, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouse cursor. I'm going to go in between A and B. And you can see it goes into like a black crossroads kind of symbol there. And I'm just going to double click. And that's going to wrap the column around the biggest text value that I have, which in this case is personal budget. I'm going to do this here in column B, so you can see like description, it's cut off. So I'm going to double click this. And that's going to wrap the text around, which looks like mortgage and rent was actually my biggest value there. So it always wraps the size of the column around your biggest value. And if I change this personal budget to, so now I've got extra letters, I'm going to have to resize that again. Okay, so you have to do it every time that you enter a new value, and it doesn't auto resize that for you. If I get something like this where I have extra white space, I can also trim that just by doing the same thing. Going in between black crossroads, double left click, and that trims that up for me. Sometimes you'll see, if the column is really small and cutting everything off, you'll get these like pound signs in. This is just an indication that your column or your cell size is too small, so you need to increase the width of the column. Again, you see I've got extra white space here. I can trim that down. So it's kind of one of those things. A lot of times people don't like that for some reason. They want to do their own, which is fine. You can do that too. You might have actually saw I just kind of did that. If you actually go in between, you get that black crossroads. If you just do a left click and hold, you can actually do the width yourself, and it tells you the exact dimension. So like if you've got a spreadsheet and you need exactly 7.38 pixels for whatever reason, you can go there. You just release the left mouse button when you are done with that. One question that always comes up is how do you just set everything to the same exact size? You go here in the upper left-hand corner, there's a black triangle. I'm going to click on that. That's select all, so that selects everything in your worksheet. And once everything in your worksheet is selected, you can click and drag one of these, doesn't matter which one, release, and you can see it makes them all the same exact size. Okay, so again, if you want to do, and when you're done, you just do a left mouse click in between. So if you want a text wrap, you go in between the two columns, do a double left click, that wraps to your biggest value. If you want to just change one or two of these, you can just do a click and drag. It works the same for rows. If you want to change everything to the same size, you would do this, click the corner, click and drag, and everything will be the exact same size. Okay. So I'm going to check the chat box again. Do you have any questions on that so far? Oh. Okay. Also, one thing that's kind of handy is if you make a mistake, like if I were to put a row here, if I were to insert a row here and I didn't want it, the easiest thing to do is at the very, very top bar here, you see I have a left arrow that's kind of going to the left. That's the undo. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, just undoes the last thing that I did. So I click on that, that gets rid of the row. If I put a column in the wrong spot, same thing, I just go up to the upper left, click on this undo arrow, and get rid of it. You can see now that I've gotten rid of something. I've got an arrow that goes to the right. That's the redo button. That just puts it back. So if you accidentally hit the undo and you didn't mean to, just click the redo. It'll put it back. So undo is nice because especially with columns and rows, generally if you put it in the wrong spots, you notice right away. All right, so that is the columns and the rows. One thing you do have to look out for, and this doesn't affect everyone, it only affects people who do right mouse clicks mostly. If I just go in here on utilities and here's my value, it's 100. I'm just going to press the delete button on my keyboard. Okay, it just got rid of that value for me. That's what I wanted, great. That's what people will normally do. However, if you go into the cell and you actually right click on that, you'll see you get two options in this menu that look kind of similar, but they actually do different things. So I've got a delete and I've got a clear contents. What we think of as delete is actually clear contents in Excel. It means I'm clearing the content of the cell, or I'm clearing the 100, that's the content. I'm clearing that out of the cell. So if I click that, it gets rid of the 100, which is what you would want. If you have a right click and you do delete, which sounds like it should do the same thing, if I press delete, you see I get this menu here, and it's asking me if I want to shift cells up or to the left. The reason it's asking that is because it's not deleting the content of the cell, it's deleting the entire cell. It's a little complicated to explain. I'll show you how this ends up working out. But basically, instead of deleting the 100 from the cell, I'm deleting the entire cell from the worksheet. So I'm taking out not 100, I'm taking out C5. I'm taking out the entire cell out of that worksheet. And that's why it's asking me to shift these cells up and to the left and such, because it has to actually fill that hole somehow. So just keep an eye on what happens with the 100 here. Just going to click, I'm going to go cells up, so I'm going to click OK. Just pay attention to what happens to the 25 here. And you can see the 100 is gone, the 25 moved up one. Now I don't have anything under home phone. And the reason for that is because I did not take out the 100, I deleted the cell C5, and it has to plug that hole. So if you do that, not a big deal, just go up to your undo and do the undo. That puts the cell back into the worksheet. Again, the only way you're going to get to that is if you do a right click, but I know some people like right click versus keyboard, so I usually show that just because it's kind of a weird quirk in Excel. Somebody asked me once why that's in there. I honestly don't know. It's just, there's probably a reason for it. I don't know what it is, but it will mess up your spreadsheets pretty bad because, again, if I delete this and I shift everything up and I don't know, these values are not matching up correctly to the categories anymore. So that's just something to be aware of with that. All right. So I'm going to show you worksheets in general real quick. So in an Excel file, I've got different spreadsheets, and each one of these spreadsheets in its entirety is called a worksheet. And the worksheet has all the cells and rows and everything. And I can have multiple worksheets for each Excel file. So instead of creating a file for, let's say I'm doing a budget, let's say instead of doing something like one file for January, one file for February, one file for March, the Excel, I can just do, I can set up one file for budget, and I can do multiple worksheets inside of each workbook or each Excel file. If you look down here at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see I've got three things listed. I've got budget, I've got test, and I've got February. And these are the names of my worksheets. So in this Excel file, I've got three worksheets. And I can go in between them by just left clicking. And you can link worksheets together so that they can work together. We're not going to do that in this class. I just want to show you, if you enter data in on one worksheet, it's not going to affect what you do on another worksheet unless you set it up that way. So you can see here in test, I've got H13 has a value of 5,000, but if I go to budget, that is not going to be the case. I don't have anything under H13. So I've got multiple worksheets here. Oh, I see I've got some questions coming in here. Right click equal to anything when there is. Okay, so if you don't have a mouse, I believe it's probably some kind of keyboard shortcut and a mouse click, but to be honest, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure there's probably a keyboard key you would hold down with the mouse button to get the click on that, but I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, to be honest. So I've got three workbooks here, and I'm going to add another workbook. So I'm going to add the plus sign here. So this plus sign at the very bottom here, bottom right, this is new sheet. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And it just adds another worksheet in. By default, it will just give you a very generic name for a worksheet. So you can see I have sheet 1. And if I add another one, it will just give me sheet 2 and so forth. So to toggle between these, it's just a left click. If I want to rename these, I would do a right click. So I don't want this to be sheet 1 because that doesn't tell me anything. I'm going to right click on this, and you'll see I've got a rename function here. So I'm going to click on rename. And I'm just going to put in a month name, so I'm just going to do March. You type that in, I'm going to hit enter. So you have to hit enter, so enter will apply that name change. So again, to rename this, I just do a right click, I do a rename, and let's see, we're in October. So I would just put in the whatever I want to call this worksheet, and I'm going to press enter. That is the way to change the name on those worksheets. If I want to reorder these, like I don't like the order that I'm in, I can just do a left mouse click and hold. So I'm on February. You can see here I've got like a little piece of paper that's stuck to my mouse cursor, and that tells me that I've got that worksheet selected. This is going to be a little hard because I don't have multiple mouse clicks, but at the bottom here I've got a little black arrow that as I move the worksheet, it's kind of moving the black arrow. The black arrow is showing me where that's going to end up at. So I'm just going to click and release this right in front of March. Now if you look at the bottom, you see it goes budget, February, March. If I want to work on October, I would just click on October initially, do a left mouse click and hold. I've got the little piece of paper stuck to my mouse cursor there. And I'm going to drag it. And I see the black arrow is in front of budget. I'm just going to release my cursor. And there we go. So that's now in front of budget. And since we're working in budget, I'm just going to flip that one first. So you can reorder these however you want. Nice thing about Excel is when you close out of a workbook and then open it back up again, it should open to the worksheet that you were previously working on. Okay. But you can reorder those to however you need to do. If you need to delete a worksheet, so I want to delete October, I right click on it and I just click delete. And it's just gone. There's no warning, it's just gone, and there's no undo. Okay, so that's like the one thing that undo is not going to help you out with. The worksheet is just gone at that point. If you got to another save version, that would be the only way to get it back. So you do have to be careful with deleting worksheets. Okay. Check my chat box here. Does anybody have questions so far? Highlight click, that does sound right for a right click, yes. But I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. I'm going to go actually into formatting next. Okay. All right, I'm going to go into formatting real quick. And so we've got numbers here in our worksheets. And you can see these categories are mortgage and rent, utilities, home phone. These are probably dollar values, and they're pretty obvious that they would have to be dollar values. You, however, might be working with something that's not clear that it's a dollar value. So this is where formatting helps. You can kind of add the currency symbols and such in there to make it easier for someone to know that. So what I would do is I would just do a left mouse click on my cell that I want to change. In this case, it's 1000. Up here in the middle of your screen, and yours might be a little different in the menu than mine is because I'm using a newer version of Excel and I've got a different screen resolution. But you should find pretty much everything in the same general spots. I'm not doing anything with these Excel things that aren't accessible from about 2013 and onward. So right here we've got an actual dollar sign we can click on. I'm going to click on that. You can see I've got the dollar sign and the decimal place in the 1000. So that is now in there, set up. And again, I just click on this number value, I click on the dollar sign, and it just puts the currency symbols and the decimal places in for me. If I want to do several at once, I can do that. I just do a left click and drag. And I just hit that currency symbol. And you can see I've now got the dollar sign and the decimal places in there. Now you can also do, if you're working in foreign currency, if you click the drop down, there is pretty much every format you can get to if you go into this accounting format menu, but there's a couple common ones. So I can switch this to pounds, or I can switch this to euros. This is not a currency converter though. 1,000 is going to stay 1,000. It's just putting in the symbol for you. Okay, so it's not going to convert $1,000 US into $1,000 euro. It's just going to put the symbol in for you. Okay, I'm going to switch that back to regular dollars. In Excel, there's usually more than one way to do a similar function. So if I go here, and instead of clicking the dollar sign, you can actually go to this drop-down menu right above it. This gives you all the formats you can do. So there's two that are similar, currency and accounting. When you click this here, this dollar sign value, you can see right above it, it puts it in the accounting format. If you put it in the currency format, it just lines it up differently. I don't know the difference. My guess is it's just an accounting thing where it has to be lined up in a certain way. Either way, it will put in the currency and it will put in the dollar sign and the decimal places. It may affect formulas. I'm not sure because I don't do too much with formulas of accounting nature. So that's just something to be aware of. And again, that's right above the dollar sign here. You go to the currency or you go to the accounting. So accounting is what you would get if you go to this dollar sign here. You can switch it either way. It's the same. It's the same there. All right. Does anybody have questions over just putting in that that format there? Can you set up a whole spreadsheet for currency before entering the numbers? You can actually format the cells. This sometimes doesn't want to take it, but so what you would do is you would click and highlight on a group of cells, and you can just switch the format in advance to currency or accounting. So I've got that set to accounting. You can see as I click, here's general, so I did not select that. Here's the one below it is where I started, that's accounting. I can go into that. Those I already set up. Then I just put in my number and the currency symbol and everything is already added. And there's actually, we're actually going to talk about autofill next, and that's another way you could kind of do that. I'm going to go into that next. So just give me a second on that. But does anybody have any questions other than that one? Okay. So instead of actually setting up the format for currency, if you're working with a lot of the same values, so like mortgage and rent, that tends not to change from month to month. So instead of setting up the format on this, and this is optional for you, this is easy for some people to get and not so easy for other people to get. It just takes some practice. You can do something called autofill, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. It just automatically fills in the values for you. So my mortgage is going to stay the same pretty much throughout these months here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to left click on the 1000. And you can see I've got a green rectangle, okay, with the green square in the corner, in the lower right-hand corner. I wish they would have made that a different color because it would have made it easier to see and work with. But if you look in the, so here's my, it's right here, lower right-hand corner of my rectangle, there's a green square. And as I put my mouse over it, it changes to a black cross symbol. That's what you want. You want this here. You want the black cross symbol to show up. Once you've got that to show up, and I'm not clicking on anything, I'm just moving my mouse over that square. Okay. So once you've got that, you're ready to do an autofill. And at this point, you do a left mouse click, and you want to hold the left mouse button down. And you just want to drag it out. So I'm dragging it out, dragging it out, dragging it out. And you can see as I drag it out, the green rectangle is growing bigger. And I've got the 1000 value showing below that. That's showing me where all I'm going to autofill to and what value I'm going to put into it. So I'm going to click and I'm going to release. And that's going to, we got cut off at. So here's the autofill. I'm going to click on the cell. I'm going to go, here's my green rectangle. I'm going to go to my lower, my right-hand corner here. And I'm going to put my mouse cursor till I get that black crossroad symbol. And I'm going to just click and drag it out. Okay. And you can do a whole bunch of these at once. So what I'm gonna do is to do a whole block of these. I'm gonna left click and drag. I'm gonna select just my group of numbers. The square is still in the lower right-hand corner, and I'm just gonna click and drag it out. You're only gonna see the bottom value when I do it this way, because it's not gonna show me all 4 numbers, but when I release, you can see that's all 4 numbers are there. Okay, so that is how you autofill. One thing you do have to be careful about though is if I just autofill at random and there's already numbers in the cell, it's just going to overwrite everything. So you do have to be careful with that. You just do an undo on that. That'll get rid of that. And you can autofill anywhere where it's touching. So up, down, left, right. You can autofill like that. The nice thing about this autofill is it does have some patterns it recognizes. So here's the months, here's June. If I autofill out, it goes July, August, September. So we'll do month names. We'll also do days of the week. So here's Monday. If I do an autofill, there's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It'll just keep going, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So it does days of the week. It does months. You can even do abbreviations. There's Mon for Monday, and it will drag that out to 2, Wed, Thursday, Jan, and it will give me the abbreviations of the month. And somebody asked what to do if you don't have a mouse available. Let's see if you can do a control click on that. You can do a control click. You can do a control click to select it. I'm not sure how you would drag it though. If you had you would have a touchpad though. You could do it that way. So you can use your touchpad. That would be an option there. Anybody have questions there? Because I know we got cut off there for a little bit. Okay. So that is the autofill. I'm going to move into formulas, and that's going to take us to a whole different thing. So, does anybody? I'm going to give you another chance. Anybody have any questions over anything we've done so far? Okay, I'm going to take it that we're all good then. All right, so formulas. I'm just going to teach you how to do just the basic formula templates. If you go to formulas here, it's at the top middle portion. If I just click on these, there's just so many formulas. just to give you an example here. I don't know what they all are or how to use all of them. I only use the basic formulas myself. If you need to use formulas and I'm not covering something that you need, if you just Google Microsoft Excel formulas, let me see if I can actually do that. Microsoft. There's just so much information on Excel formulas, including Microsoft. They have their own page that tells you how to do this kind of stuff, and it will go through in depth on whatever formula you need. So if I need to use a specific formula, you can just do, how do I use the Autosum in Excel? Or for somebody who asked earlier about the Mac, so you've got Numbers, which is I think the Mac version, and then Google Sheets, that's an open source. You can just Google these and it will give you Microsoft's page here or whatever page you need, or YouTube. There's just so many resources on that. Lynda.com, which we offer, I'll show you here at the end. So you would just go to these web pages. It should give you an overview of a specific formula. So that is an option to do. But I'm just going to show you how to set up formula in a basic way. So with formulas, you always need to start with an equal sign. The equal sign is what tells Excel that what's coming next is a formula, and it's not just a data value that you're putting into a cell for it to display. So equals has to come first. And then Excel does an order of operations. And so Excel is not going to just take whatever numbers you put in and go from left to right. It actually has things that it looks for specifically. And the order of operations is as follows. It is parentheses. It's exponents. Excuse me, it should be multiplication and division, and that's going from left to right. And it's going to go addition and subtraction, and that's also going from left to right. Sorry, I think I'm actually typing in a formula there. We do it this way. Addition and so for Excel, it's going to do this first, parentheses. I probably spelled that wrong. Exponents, multiplication, division, left to right, and addition and subtraction from left to right. And I'll show you an example of how this affects your formulas here in a minute. Let me make a note of this too. It always starts with equals. So formulas always have to start with the equal sign. And then Excel's order of operation is parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division from left to right, and addition and subtraction from left to right. It's the same as doing algebra in school. And so the mnemonic device for remembering that is PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. These are left to right. That's the mnemonic device you can use to remember that. I'm going to show you here in a second how that actually does affect your formulas. So go to a clean part of my spreadsheet here. So here's a formula. I'm just going to put in equals 1 plus 2 divided by 3. And I get 1.67 or 1 2/3 this time I'm going to do equals parentheses 1 plus 2 divided by 3, and I get the number 1. So I use the same number both times, but I got two different answers. And why is that? Well, it's because of the order of operations in Excel. Excel is looking at this here when it does a equation. So it was looking at this formula and it's saying, okay, is there parentheses? No. Is there exponents? No. Which exponents, by the way, is like 2. This would be 2 squared. And this would be 2 cubed, or 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, that's what exponents are. It just multiplies it by itself, however many times you're raising it to the power. But anyway, it's looking at this and it's saying, okay, I don't see parentheses, I don't see exponents, I do see multiplication and division, and that comes before addition and subtraction in the hierarchy. So 2 divided by 3 is 0.67. 1 plus 0.67 is 1.67. On the second one here, it looked at it and it said, okay, parentheses, that comes first. I see 1 plus 2, so that's 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, so just because I put the parentheses in there, that changed the entire equation. Because I was telling Excel that I want you to add 1 plus 2 first. I want you to do what's in parentheses first. So when you do equations, you really have to pay attention that what you're putting in is what you actually want to put in. And if you want to just be on the safe side and just put everything in parentheses, it will not hurt anything. That's going to give me 3 either way. Okay. So you just have to look at that. Like I said, it's always going to go in this order. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division from left to right, and addition and subtraction from left to right. Okay, so even though I had the same exact numbers on these two equations, the fact that I had that parentheses in there just changed the entire equation on that. Oh, you're not seeing my screen for Google. Sorry, I didn't realize that. So if you go to Google and just type in the search term like how to use Excel, or how to use Excel formulas with your version, or how to use Autosum for Excel 2013, if you type that into Google, that will pop that up. Sorry, I did not realize you were not seeing that. Yeah, but if you just do a standard Google search for an Excel formula, or just Excel formulas in general, it's so commonly searched for that it will pop up a Microsoft link pretty much at the top of the page. Open Excel, but can't get to a worksheet. So if you open Excel, if you don't have anything here, you can try to do File and then do a blank. A blank workbook would give you a new worksheet. Or File, New, and that would give you a blank workbook as well. But again, I'm going to post this to YouTube, so if you want to just watch it for now and then go back and watch the YouTube when you have more time, that should help get you there with that. Does anybody have questions about the formulas though? Because I know that that's kind of a lot. Yeah, we're going to actually go to Autosum here in a second. There's still a little bit more with formulas. I'm trying to break this up a little bit so it's a little bit more manageable. But okay. So I'm going to delete this stuff real quick just so it makes it a little bit easier. Okay. So Autosum would be like if I want to add up a group of numbers. So if I just want a total of these numbers here, instead of going through and adding them up individually, what I would do is I would just click on the Autosum button. It's up in the formulas, and it's in the upper left-hand corner. It's probably the most commonly used formula in Excel, and it's just what it sounds like. It automatically sums up a group of numbers. So I go to Autosum, and I just left-click and drag over the numbers that I want to add up. I press Enter, and that automatically gives me a total. Okay, so the total of every number in this column is 1,390. So again, I'm going to find a blank cell. I'm going to go to the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to click Autosum. It will grab some numbers just by default, whatever is closest to it. You can actually just click and drag whatever you want it to add up. So just do a left mouse click, hold, and drag. Down here, you'll see the actual formula. This is if you want to type it out by hand. You don't have to. The button's right there. Much easier. This here, D4 colon D12, that's the range. So I'm adding everything up from D4 to D12. But again, you can see that it's highlighted right there. Then all you have to do is press Enter, and that adds up the entire column for you. The nice thing is if you find you make a mistake, and this is supposed to be like 50, if I change this, it'll change the Autosum. So if you set it up correctly once, you won't have to go through and do it multiple times. So that's the Autosum. If you only want to do a couple of numbers, you can actually just type in a cell address value. So if I want to do equals C4 plus D4. You can see I'm adding up these two here, C4 and D4. You can use the actual cell address to do equations as well. You just press Enter, and that gives you 2,000. So you can do either with numbers or with cell address. I recommend doing the cell address because it'll automatically change the values for you if these change. So if this is actually 1,500, you can see it changed this number and this number automatically. So you would want to do the cell address instead of the number if possible. All right. So that's formulas. Autosum is going to be your most commonly used one. I know it's a lot to go through. It's okay. So with Autosum, you can do that. And with any kind of cell address, you have to keep that mnemonic device I had in mind, that PEMDAS. I just did an addition one there, so it's not going to affect anything. But if you had multiplication, division, and all that, it will affect that even with the cell address as well. Okay. Running kind of low on time. I'm going to just hit two more things here real quick. Formatting, if we go back to the home, you can do different things with formatting. It's just like any other Office product. I can change the background, the text color, the font size. This is nice to highlight something. The rest of the stuff I don't know if I would do. But it's there if you need it. It's just like any other Office product, so I'm not going to go into that too much. I want to hit printing real quick, though, so we're just going to go right into it. We're going to hit File. And printing is in the middle portion of your screen. If I click on that, you can see this box here that on the right-hand side that's showing me the numbers and such. My spreadsheets, that is a print preview. It shows me what I'm going to get when I print out. If you go to the very bottom here, it's fitting the sheet onto one page. That's fine because this is a small worksheet. If you had something like 500 rows though, and you tried to print that out, it will come out very, very tiny and unreadable. So what you would have to do in that case is instead of fitting it onto one page, you need to go to no scaling. No scaling prints it at its actual size, and you can see that my print preview, it's got quite a bit larger when I did the no scaling. So by default, it will fit onto one page. You will need to switch it to no scaling if you got a really big spreadsheet. If you click on this page setup link that is below that, you've got options to adjust the margins. You can also adjust the margins here in the main menu. If you want just generic ones, they've got normal, wide, and narrow. This will change the margins for you. If you want a specific one, you need to go into this page setup and actually set up the dimensions. Header and footer. Header is what goes at the top of the page. Footer is what goes at the bottom of the page. If you click on the header drop-down menu, it will give you generic choices you can do. You can do the name of the workbook. You can do the page numbers. Page 1 of question mark is like if you printed, it'll do page 102, page 103 at the top. You can put down the file path. You can put down confidential on it. The footer is the same. You can do it either way. I'll just put page 1, page 1 of whatever. You can do a custom header, custom footer. And I have other options here. I can put the time. I can put the date. I click OK. You can see it puts the time and the date down on the bottom. Nice thing about this is if I open this tomorrow at noon, it will say 12 o'clock p.m. and 10/6/2020. It will automatically change that over if you do it that way. One last thing to show you is if you do page setup and then you go to the sheet page, I always recommend you check grid lines and row and column headings. This will make it look like the actual spreadsheets. So you've got your grid lines and your row and column headings. It just makes it easier to work with. So I know that was kind of fast there. We've only got a couple minutes left. So does anybody have any last minute questions? Any last minute questions? The column numbers on each page. So you would put the grid lines and the row and column headings. That should put that in there for you. And with this, you can print, by default, it will print active sheets. Active sheets is what you actively worked on in this session. If you click the drop down, you can print the entire workbook, which is everything in Excel, all those worksheets I had, and also the selection would give you just a couple of values there that you had selected. So changing like the defaults, like the fonts and the print grid lines. So let's see, you want to actually change the default. No one's actually ever asked me that before. When you print not all the grid lines prints. That let's see. I'm not sure about the grid lines not printing all the way. Somebody asked if what would happen if their grid lines were not printing all the way. That would I'd have to see that one, I think, because I'm assuming you've got the grid lines selection checked. That I don't know, to be honest with you. As far as setting somebody asked about setting the font defaults. Don't know if you can do that into these options or not. That I need to check into because nobody's ever asked me that before, so I need to check into that. All right, let me see. I got another question. Yeah, I'm not sure about the grid lines not printing out all the way. Only got a little bit left, but let me tell you that if you need more Excel help, because I know we went kind of fast today, if you go to the Hudson Library's webpage, the main page there, if you go to the databases, I believe it's under databases, or it's under, hold up real quick so I can see what it is under. So if you go to the Hudson Library's webpage and go to research it, there's a splash graphic for lynda.com. If you go there, they have Excel tutorials. They're all really good. And if you go to that, it's free with your library card. You can just go in there, create an account, and they have courses on all sorts of things, not just Excel, but they do have a ton of Excel on there. That's a good resource for that. And it gives you a certificate of completion if you complete that. So to line multiple pages up, I don't have a, so if I go to print and I do entire workbook, you can see it does line it up. But like here where I've only got a few selections, this is not going to line up at the end. Excel's a little tricky when you print it. You really have to kind of just play with these options until it comes out correctly. And it's just a matter of just changing margins and shrinking things onto different pages and printing active sheets and selections and such and such. There's not really a hard and fast rule. It's just kind of fiddling with it until you get it however you want it. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? All right. So like I said, this is the first time I've done this on Zoom, so hopefully it wasn't too terrible. We will put it up on, I'm going to take a look at the recording. Hopefully me losing connection there in the middle didn't mess this up too badly. I'm going to try to put it up, I would say, by the end of the week, hopefully, if everything went okay. If not, you do have the lynda.com option. That's there. And don't be intimidated when you go into Lynda, because you'll see that the courses go like 3 hours or however many hours. You can drill down and just take the lessons that you need specifically. All right. All right, well, thanks, everybody. I'm going to see if I have any more questions coming in. The website, so you want to actually go to the Hudson Libraries page. It's lynda.com is the name of the website. You actually need to access it from our webpage, though. So you need to go to hudsonlibrary.com, and then from there, you would go to, I believe it's research it. Let me check real quick. Correct, it is under research it. So hudsonlibrary.com, and go to research it, and then from there, you'll see a splash page for lynda.com. Okay, so it is an actual website on its own, but what you want to go through our web page, because we actually have a library subscription. So you want to go through here so you get it for free versus going through there where you'd have to pay.